All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive. Today we're tackling something that I think we all struggle with. Well, I know I do.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Multitasking. Is it really the productivity superpower everyone says it is?
Ooh, that's a good one. We're all so busy these days.
Exactly. So we're diving into The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan to get some answers. Specifically, pages 19 to 31. They really dissect this whole multitasking thing.
I'm ready to have this myth busted. It's like we think we're masters of multitasking, juggling a million things at once.
Right, like we're superhuman or something.
But then it's like that Billy Collins quote, we
Yeah.
end up just driving ourselves bananas.
Totally. I'm definitely guilty of trying to do it all. Answering emails during meetings, planning dinner while I'm on a conference call.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, we're not actually multitasking.
We're not.
Nope. According to Keller and Papasan, it's more like task switching, and it's costing us way more than we realize.
Okay, so maybe I'm not as amazing as I thought I was.
Well, there's actually some research on this. You know that Stanford professor Clifford Nass?
I don't think so, no.
Well, he was fascinated by multitaskers. He thought they must have some secret advantage. But his research showed the opposite. He found that they were actually suckers for irrelevancy, as he put it.
Suckers for irrelevancy. Wow, that's harsh.
But it's true. They were also, well, lousy at everything.
So the people who think they're the best at multitasking are actually setting themselves up for failure. That's kind of scary.
It is, but it makes you wonder why we're so drawn to juggling all these tasks in the first place.
Right, like what is it about our brains that makes us want to do it all at once?
Well, Keller and Papasan call it our monkey minds.
Monkey minds.
Yeah, constantly swinging from one thing to the next. They say we have thousands of thoughts every single day, all these things vying for our attention.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, think about it. You're trying to focus on a project.
And then, bam, your coworker starts coughing, the phone rings, you get a notification. It's a recipe for distraction.
It's like my brain is wired for distraction.
It kind of is. And here's the thing, every time we switch tasks, there's a cost.
A cost? Like what?
Well, think about it like juggling. Each ball needs your full attention, right?
Yeah, of course.
Our brains are the same way. They have to reorient every time we switch gears.
And that takes time and energy.
Exactly. The more complex the task, the bigger the hit to our productivity.
Yeah, I read that we lose something like 28% of our workday to multitasking ineffectiveness.
It's a lot, isn't it? And it's not just about lost time. Think about jobs where focus is critical.
Like surgeons or pilots.
Right. We expect them to be totally focused because lives are at stake, but do we hold ourselves to that same standard?
Good point. We don't. But why is that?
Well, one reason might be willpower. Turns out it's not an endless resource.
So, like, my willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired.
Exactly. Keller and Papasan say it's strongest in the morning and gets weaker as the day goes on.
That explains why I get so much less done in the afternoons.
I know, right? So we need to be strategic about when we tackle those tough tasks.
Okay, so multitasking is out, and willpower is a limited resource.
Right.
But what happens when we hit that wall, even in the morning? When we're just completely drained.
That's when our default settings take over, and they might not be the best for us.
Default settings, what do you mean?
Think about it. When you're tired and your willpower is low, what do you reach for? A healthy snack or a bag of chips?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right. And do you push through that tough project or just scroll through social media?
Ugh, you're totally calling me out here. I definitely have those moments. Like, my willpower just disappears.
We all do. But the first step is recognizing those automatic responses.
So being aware of our own bad habits.
Exactly. And then consciously choosing to do something different. It's not easy, but it gets easier over time.
So we can actually rewire our brains to be more productive.
That's the goal. It's
Yeah.
about understanding ourselves and working with our limitations.
That's actually really empowering.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've talked about ditching multitasking and managing willpower.
Right.
But what about those times when even our best efforts aren't enough? Like when we just can't seem to focus?
Well, Keller and Papasan have some interesting insights about that too. It turns out the food we eat plays a huge role in our willpower and how well our brains work.
Really? You're telling me what I eat can affect my focus?
It can. Our brains need a lot of energy to function properly, and the type of fuel we give them makes a big difference.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about this brain fuel.
Well, they talk about how certain foods provide a slow and steady release of energy, which helps to keep our willpower strong.
So I'm guessing sugary snacks are not on the menu.
Not ideal, no. They lead to those sugar crashes that leave us feeling drained and unfocused.
Makes sense. So what should I be eating to keep my willpower tank topped up?
They recommend focusing on complex carbohydrates like whole grains, fruits, and vegetables.
Okay, that makes sense.
And lean protein sources like fish, beans, and lentils.
Got it. Complex carbs and lean protein. Brain fuel for a productive day.
Exactly. And don't forget about regular meals and snacks, too. Keeping your blood sugar stable helps your brain stay focused.
This is seriously blowing my mind. So much of what we've talked about today is stuff I never even considered. It's like a whole new way of looking at productivity.
I know, right? It's fascinating. It really makes you think.
It does. So if I want to put all this into practice, what are the key things to remember?
Well, first, ditch the multitasking myth. Embrace the power of single tasking.
No more pretending I'm a superhuman multitasker. Check.
And then, be strategic about your willpower. Tackle your most important tasks when your energy is highest.
So prioritize and schedule my day based on my willpower levels.
Got it.
You got it. Okay, this is super helpful. I can already see how making these changes could make a big difference in my work.
Me too. And remember, take breaks, get some fresh air, and fuel your brain with those willpower-boosting foods we talked about. It all adds up.
Breaks and brain food. Got it. I'm starting to see a pattern here.
There's a reason for that. It's all about working with our natural rhythms, not against them. When we understand how our brains work, we can be so much more effective.
This deep dive has been amazing. I feel like I've learned so much already.
Me too. And the good news is, we're just getting started.
Wait, there's more.
Oh, yeah. Keller and Papasan have a lot more to say about busting those myths that hold us back. And in the next part, we're going to tackle another big one, the myth of a balanced life. Welcome back. We're continuing our deep dive into the one thing. You know, it's been awesome breaking down this whole multitasking thing.
I know, right? I'm already starting to rethink how I approach my work.
It's a real game changer. But get this, Keller and Papasan don't stop there. They tackle another big myth that I think a lot of us struggle with.
Okay, you got my attention. What's this other myth?
It's the myth of a perfectly balanced life.
The work-life balance thing.
Exactly. That idea that we should be able to effortlessly juggle all aspects of our lives, work, family, health, hobbies.
Oh yeah, that elusive balance. We're all chasing it, right? But it always feels just out of reach.
Right, it's like a unicorn. We hear about it, but do we ever actually see it?
Not really. It's more like this ideal that we're always striving for. But maybe it's not even possible.
That's what Keller and Papasan argue. They say this pursuit of perfect balance is actually counterproductive.
Wait, striving for balance is a bad thing. But how can that be?
Well, think about it. When we try to give equal attention to everything, does anything really get the focus it needs?
That's a good point. It's like spreading yourself too thin.
Exactly. It's like trying to be a master of everything, but ending up mastering nothing.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But it's hard, right? I mean, life is so demanding these days. How can we possibly focus on just one thing?
That's where they introduce the concept of counterbalancing.
Counterbalancing. What's that?
It's about strategically shifting your focus based on what's most important at any given time.
So, not about dividing your time equally, but being intentional about where you put your energy.
Precisely. They talk about applying this differently in our personal and professional lives.
Okay, tell me more. How do you counterbalance in your personal life?
For our personal lives, they recommend short bursts of imbalance. It's about quickly shifting back and forth between different areas to make sure nothing gets neglected.
So like, you focus on work for a few hours, then shift your attention to family, then maybe squeeze in some exercise.
Exactly. It's like tending a garden. You water one plant, then move to the next, making sure everything gets what it needs.
I like that analogy. So it's not about being perfectly balanced all the time, but making sure everything gets attention, even if it means things are a little uneven for a while.
You got it. But when it comes to our professional lives, they suggest a slightly different approach.
Oh, how so? What's different about work?
Well, for work, they recommend embracing longer periods of imbalance.
Longer periods? Like how long?
It depends on the goal. But the idea is that significant achievements often require intense, focused effort over time.
So like, if you're working on a big project, you might need to really pour yourself into it for a few weeks or even months.
Exactly. They even talk about making peace with the inevitable.
Making peace with the inevitable. That sounds kind of ominous.
It just means accepting that when you're pursuing something big, something that requires sustained effort, other things might slide.
Oh, I get it. Like maybe you miss a few social events or your laundry piles up because you're so focused on your work.
Right, it's about prioritizing what matters most in that moment.
But how do you know when to push and when to pull back? Like, when is it okay to let things slide? And when do you need to rebalance?
That's the art of counterbalancing. It's a dynamic process. You have to tune into yourself, be aware of your limits, and adjust as needed.
So there's no magic formula. It's more about being flexible and adaptable.
Exactly. And being okay with things not always being perfect.
It sounds like this whole idea of counterbalancing takes a lot of self-awareness and discipline.
It does, but it's also incredibly liberating. Because when you let go of the pressure to be perfectly balanced all the time, you actually give yourself permission to be more fully present in whatever you're doing.
That makes sense. Whether you're working on a project or spending time with family, you can really be there in that moment.
Exactly. It's about being intentional and making conscious choices. And it's not about being selfish either.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
Because when you're able to achieve great things in one area of your life, it actually benefits all the other areas too.
So like if you're crushing it at work, you're more likely to be happier and more present when you're with family.
Exactly. And when you're able to fully recharge and connect with loved ones, you bring more energy and creativity back to your work.
It's like a positive feedback loop. Each area of your life fuels the others.
I love that. A positive feedback loop. That's a great way to put it.
This whole conversation about counterbalancing is really resonating with me. It feels so much more realistic and achievable than striving for this perfect balance that doesn't even exist.
I know, right? It's a total mindset shift. But here's the thing. Keller and Papasan have one more myth they want to bust, and it might be the sneakiest one of all.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What's this final myth? All right, so you said there's one more myth that Keller and Papasan want us to be aware of.
Oh yeah, this one's a biggie. And it's sneaky.
Okay, lay it on me. What's this final myth?
It's the belief that big is bad.
Big is bad. What do you mean by that?
It's that idea that dreaming big is setting ourselves up for failure or disappointment. You know, that thinking small is somehow safer.
Oh, I think we all struggle with that to some extent. That voice that tells us to play it safe. But why do we do that?
Well, Keller and Papasan say that fear often disguises itself as practicality or wisdom.
We convince ourselves that we're just being realistic by downsizing our dreams.
Exactly. But really, it's often fear holding us back. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of what others might think.
So we end up limiting ourselves before we even start.
Right. And the irony is, by thinking small, we actually miss out on the incredible things we're capable of achieving.
So how do we break free from this small thinking trap?
One powerful strategy they suggest is to start asking bigger questions.
Bigger questions. Like what?
Instead of asking, what do I do next? Which keeps us stuck in a cycle of incremental progress.
We should be asking.
Questions like, how can I achieve 10 times the results? Or what would it look like to create something truly groundbreaking?
Wow, those are some big questions. But I like it. It's like shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance.
You got it. And once we start asking those bigger questions, our minds begin to generate bolder, more creative solutions. We start to see opportunities where we once only saw obstacles.
It's like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Exactly. If we limit ourselves with small thinking, we'll never even attempt those things that could lead to real breakthroughs. And here's the key. Action follows thought.
Oh, that's so true. Our actions are always going to be limited by our thinking.
Precisely. So, if we want to achieve big things, we need to start by thinking big thoughts.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I want to, let's say, build a successful business or write a best-selling book, I need to first believe that it's actually possible.
You nailed it. That belief, that unwavering faith in our own potential, is the fuel that drives us to take action and achieve extraordinary results.
It's like giving ourselves permission to dream big and then actually pursue those dreams.
That's exactly it. It might sound simple, but it's incredibly powerful. And remember, it's okay to feel a little scared or uncomfortable when you step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's where the growth happens, right?
Absolutely. But what about those moments when fear creeps in? When we start to doubt ourselves or worry that we've bitten off more than we can chew?
We all have those moments. So what do we do then?
That's when we need to remind ourselves that we're not alone. Keller and Papasan talk about the importance of modeling success. Find people who have achieved the things you aspire to and study their mindsets, their habits, their strategies.
So learn from those who have already walked the path,
Exactly. And it's not just about learning from their successes, but also from their failures.
because failure is inevitable, right?
It is, and it's through our setbacks and mistakes that we learn, adapt, and grow.
It's like that saying, you learn more from your losses than your wins.
Right. Every failure is an opportunity to course correct, refine our approach, and come back stronger.
So it's all about having a growth mindset, like Keller and Papasan talk about.
Yes. That belief that our abilities are not fixed, but can be developed through effort and persistence. It's about seeing challenges and opportunities for growth rather than threats.
So we embrace the difficulty instead of shrinking back from it.
Precisely. And when we adopt that mindset, we become more resilient, more adaptable, and more likely to achieve our goals.
This whole conversation about thinking big is so inspiring. It's like a call to action to step up and create something amazing.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about being reckless or taking foolish risks. It's about having the courage to dream big, set bold goals, and take the actions necessary to make those dreams a reality.
I love that. It's about combining big thinking with smart action.
Exactly. And as Keller and Papasan put it, don't let small thinking cut your life down to size. Embrace the power of thinking big, act boldly, and see just how extraordinary your life can become.
That's a fantastic message. Well, listeners, that wraps up our deep dive into The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. We've debunked 3 major myths: the myth of multitasking, the myth of a balanced life, and the myth that big is bad. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration and feel inspired to apply these insights to your own life. Remember to focus on your one thing, embrace the power of counterbalancing, and never be afraid to think big. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for the extraordinary.
Thanks for listening. So now you know, multitasking isn't the productivity booster it's cracked up to be. If you're ready to dive deeper into focusing on what truly matters, check out our other episodes. We've got plenty more insights to help you work smarter, not harder. Click on one of the links and keep leveling up.